Hello everyone. I welcome all the learners who are seeking efficiency in their learning to YuktMind's unique initiative 10 minutes and newspaper done. This is 12th July, the Hindu discussion, and there are 10 articles to be covered. So you can have a glance at their headings, that is, SC asks ED chief to quit, 28% tax on online gaming firms, electoral bonds, disaster in Himachal, UNDP study about multidimensional poverty about India, citizen action for clean politicians, greenwashing, Schedule M about MSMEs, legal row between farmers and PepsiCo, and giant artificial intelligences. You can download the well curated PDF from our Telegram channel or website Daily Current Affairs tab. So let's quickly go through all of them. First news, the Supreme Court asked ED director to quit but upholds amendments that facilitate the tenures of directors of the CBI and the ED to be stretched piecemeal. Now, this news comes under the topic of statutory and regulatory bodies under GS Paper 2. CBI and ED chiefs have fixed tenures of 2 years. However, amendments introduced in 2021 to the CVC Act and the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act and the fundamental rules allow them 3 annual extensions. The tweaks in the law came shortly after the Supreme Court in September 2021 judgment directed the government to stop giving extensions. The amendments allowed the government to overcome the court's direction. A Supreme Court bench held that the back-to-back service extensions were both invalid and illegal. The court further said that the 2021 amendments were enacted by Parliament, that is, elected representatives of the people, so the court cannot sit in judgment over their wisdom. Second news, GST Council to impose 28% tax on online gaming firms. Now, this news comes under the topic of powers, functions, and responsibilities of various constitutional bodies, here being GST Council under GS Paper 2. The GST Council reduced or clarified the tax rate on some items ranging from uncooked or unfried snack pellets to SUVs, exempted imported drugs to treat cancer and rare diseases. There has been a long time debate over online gaming, casinos, and horse racing. So, whether they involve skill or chance or both or neither, bets and wagers made on all, that is, online gaming, casinos, and horse racing, will attract a 28% levy, and the GST laws will be amended to include online gaming. The government further said that the statutory bodies to resolve mounting GST disputes shall become operational within 4 to 6 months, with benches coming up in the state capitals and places where the high courts have benches. Third news, electoral bonds were the chief source of donations for political parties, with the BJP garnering the lion's share. Between 2016-17 and 2021-22, 7 national and 24 regional parties received a total donation of 9,188 crore rupees. The Electoral Bond Scheme 2018 was introduced for the purpose of electoral funding, and the Finance Act 2017 removed the previous limit of 7.5% of the company's average 3-year net profit for political donations. Of the total donations received by the 31 political parties in the last 6-year period, 56% was from the electoral bonds, 28% was received from the corporate sector, and 16% from other sources. Now let's look at the restrictions that were done away with after the introduction of the electoral bond scheme. Earlier, no foreign company could donate to any political party under the Companies Act, but now they can. A firm could donate a maximum of 7.5% of its average 3-year net profit as political donations according to the Section 182 of the Companies Act. Now, this maximum limit has done away with. As per the same section of the Act, companies had to disclose details of their political donations in their annual statement of accounts. Now, this is no more required. So, the government moved an amendment in the finance bill to ensure that these provisions would not be applicable to companies in case of electoral bonds. Fourth news, in Himachal, a disaster that is beyond just nature's fury. Now, this news comes under the topic of disaster and disaster management under GS Paper 3. In less than a month since the onset of the monsoon, over 41 incidents of landslips, 29 flash floods, and 1 cloudburst have occurred so far in Himachal Pradesh. This has yet again triggered a debate over whether the ongoing fury of nature is a man-made or one caused by nature. According to experts, the flash floods in Himachal Pradesh had been evidently triggered by excess rainfall, but they had also been intensified by muck and debris dumped along streams and rivers. These disasters are directly or indirectly caused due to land use change, erosion caused by deforestation, and slopes destabilized by construction. Building along the riverbed in floodplains block the path of the river in spate and is harmful. But it is the excavation, tree felling, and digging of slopes for roads, highways, buildings, and dams that causes landslips, which in turn leads to flash floods causing damage downstream. Himachal Pradesh State of Environment report released in 2022 by the Department of Environment, Science and Technology points out that mountain areas are highly vulnerable to natural disasters, and development over the years has compounded the problem by upsetting the natural balance of various physical processes. The increased pressure on the mountain environment has contributed in some measure to environmental problems such as landslips, land subsidence, removal of vegetation, and soil erosion. So, what is the way forward? There is need to ensure that debris and muck are not thrown into rivers or rivulets during the construction of roads, projects, or dwellings. Also, construction near river needs to be regulated. Fifth news, a total of 415 million people moved out of poverty in India within just 15 years from 2005 and 6 to 2019 and 21, with its incidence falling from 55% to 16%, the United Nations said. Now, this news comes under the topic of poverty and hunger under GS Paper 2 and poverty and developmental issues under GS Paper 1. The latest update of the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index was released by the United Nations Development Programme (UNDP) and the Oxford Poverty and Human Development Initiative (OPHI) at the University of Oxford. You should remember this information about Multidimensional Poverty Index. It said that 25 countries, including India, successfully halved their global MPI values within 15 years, showing that rapid progress is attainable. These countries include Cambodia, China, Congo, Honduras, India, Indonesia, Morocco, Serbia, and Vietnam. The report noted that deprivation in all indicators declined in India, and the poorest states and groups, including children and people in disadvantaged caste groups, had the fastest absolute progress. According to the report, people who are multidimensionally poor and deprived under the nutrition indicator in India declined from 44% in 2005 and 6 to 11% in 2019 and 21, and child mortality fell from 4.5% to 1.5% in the same period. Those who are poor and deprived of cooking fuel fell from 53% to 14%, and those deprived of sanitation fell from 50% to 11.3%. In the drinking water indicator, the percentage of people who are multidimensionally poor and deprived fell from 16.4% to 2.7%. Now, you can use this data in mains answer to prove the success of poverty programs of India. According to the 2023 release, 1.1 billion people out of 6.1 billion people live in acute multidimensional poverty across 110 countries. Sixth news, citizen action for clean politicians, cleaner politics. Now, this news comes under the topic of salient features of the Representation of Peoples Act under GS Paper 2. Of the 4,001 sitting MLAs, 44% have a criminal case. The current Lok Sabha also has 43% MPs with criminal cases. In 2004, the percentage was around 22% and has now been doubled. The chances of those with a criminal record winning was over 15%. In comparison, it was 4.7% for those with a clean record. This shows that people with a criminal record are more likely to get elected. Now, gender representation is low with only 9% of elected women MLAs. Most MLAs are college graduates, around 66%. Winning depends on the wealth of a candidate, with 30% of those with assets of 5 crore or more being elected, while only 8% of those with assets of 2 crore or less were elected. In contrast, 75% of Indian citizens reported wealth of rupees 8 lakh or less, and a total of 98% reported wealth of rupees 80 lakh or less. According to Association for Democratic Reforms (ADR), candidates spend crores of rupees and violate the spending limit of rupees 40 lakh for MLAs and rupees 70 lakh for MPs, which has been enhanced to rupees 90 lakh in 2022, which is the limit the Election Commission of India has set in consultation with the political parties. Seventh news, greenwashing. The Forest Conservation Amendment Bill 2023 that is being deliberated upon by a joint committee of parliament is a contentious piece of legislation that signals the complex challenges involved in balancing industrial development and the conservation of forests. While industrialization inevitably means usurping greater tracts of forest lands and ecosystems, the Forest Conservation Act 1980 has been the mantelpiece legislation that has empowered the state to regulate this and impose costs on such industrial exploitation. India's forest cover has seen only marginal increases, as biennial reports of the Forest Survey of India illustrate. It is tree cover in orchards, plantations, and village homesteads that has been on the rise and supplementing India's claim that 24% of its area is under forest and tree cover. India has committed to increasing this number to 33% and adding a carbon sink of 2.5 billion to 3 billion tons of CO2 this way by 2030 as part of its international climate commitments. The existing Forest Act 1980 in the Environment Ministry's reckoning was insufficient for these ends and did not incentivize private agroforestry and tree plantation activity. The new amendments to the Forest Act gave such incentives by clearly defining the limits of the 1996 judgment. Only land recorded as forest in any government record on or after 1980 would invoke provisions of the Act. The amendments effectively mean states can no longer classify unclassified forest land or patches of tree with forest-like characteristics as forest land. The amendments also allow forest land up to 100 km near India's borders to be appropriated without central approval for strategic and security purposes. The primary criticism is that these amendments do not really contribute to regenerating natural forests but rather incentivize afforestation for commercial ends. 8th news. Union Minister of Chemicals and Fertilizers has directed regulatory authorities to conduct risk-based inspection and audit of manufacturing plants with a view to ensuring robust quality of pharmaceutical products. He also stated that Schedule M would be made compulsory for the MSME pharma sector in a phased manner. Now, this news comes under the topic of changes in industrial policy and their effects on industrial growth under GS Paper 3. Schedule M is the part of Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, which deals with good manufacturing practices for pharmaceuticals that should be followed by pharmaceutical manufacturing units in India. The minister also underscored the need for self-regulation in the MSME pharma sector for India to maintain its status as the pharmacy of the world. 9th news. The Delhi High Court held that there was no merit in the appeal filed by PepsiCo over the patent rights for its unique potato variety. Now, this news comes under the intellectual property rights topic under GS Paper 3. The appeal was against an order passed by the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority. The authority revoked PepsiCo's registration with respect to its potato plant variety FL 2027 on the grounds provided under Section 34 of the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act 2001. FL 2027 is a chipping potato variety with low external defects, high dry matter content, and stable sugars, all of which make it a highly suitable for manufacturing of chips. What is the Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Act? The Act provides an effective framework to conserve and encourage the development of various plant varieties. It established an effective system to safeguard and recognize the rights of breeders, researchers, and farmers to promote agricultural development in the country. It also facilitates the mushrooming of the Indian seed industry to ensure the availability of high quality seeds and planting materials. So, why did the court reject the appeal? The court held that FL 2027 could not fulfill the criteria of novelty and was only eligible for registration under extant variety. 10th news is about giant artificial intelligences like ChatGPT. And this news comes under the topic of awareness in the fields of IT and computers under GS Paper 3. ChatGPT is a large language model. This is a type of transformer-based neural network that is great at predicting the next word in a sequence of words. ChatGPT uses GPT-4. There are many use cases intended for these systems like legal services, teaching students, generating policy suggestions, etc. GAIs, that is giant artificial intelligences, are thus intended to be a tool that automates what has so far been assumed to be impossible to automate, that is knowledge work. Giant artificial intelligences leave no room for democratic input. They're designed from the top down with the premise that the model will acquire the smaller detail on its own. So here comes the concept that is high modernism. What happens that states seek to improve the lives of their citizens, but when they design policies from the top down, they often reduce the richness and complexity of human experience to that which is quantifiable. High modernism is an ideology which falsely claims to have scientific foundation and often ignores local knowledge and lived experience, leading to disastrous consequences. Like the example of monocrop plantations in contrast to multi-crop plantations, to show how top-down planning can fail to account for regional diversity in agriculture. So why is high modernism a problem when designing AI? Business models like Amazon yields only increased standardization and not sustainability or craft. And consequently, everyone has the same cheap cookie cutter products while the local small town shops die a slow death by 1,000 clicks. So, what do giant AIs abstract away? Like the death of local stores, the rise of GAIs could lead to the loss of languages, which will hurt the diversity of our very thoughts. Such local knowledge is abstracted away by GAIs in favor of the Atlas view, that is, it lacks multidimensionality and provides an overview of the region without capturing the in depth intricacies of all that is present on the internet. So, can diversity help? Diversity here implies multiple solutions to the same question, like independent cartographers preparing different atlases with different incentives. Some will focus on the flora while others on the fauna. The research on diversity suggests that the more time passes before reaching a common solution, the better the outcome. Thank you for watching. Let us know your feedback in the comments and keep visiting our website, Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter.